Okay, record. Okay, welcome to the very first episode of Love at First Fight.
Yay.
I'm so excited to be here. My name is Polina. I am the host, and I am joined by the incredible Dr. Lola Gershfeld, who also happens to be my mother. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
I love these conversations with you, so it's so fun. Let's do it.
I feel like this is perfect because you are really in. I parent the kids, the five kids, but you're like in it, you're like the coach on the sideline that comes in. And I'm like, all right, this is how the play went today on the field. And you're over here like, okay, hold on. Next time, pull over to the right a little bit more. Take the football all the way down to the end field. Score the goal. So I'm really excited to have you on this podcast. And if you are new and you don't know me, I am a mom of five beautiful kids. And this podcast was born, gave birth to this podcast out of the inspiration to be the voice for my children and also to be the voice for children all around the world. So, this podcast is called Love at First Fight because I really feel like when a child is born and they experience their very first conflict, their very first fight, in their relationship with their parents, in the relationship with their siblings. This is where we really get to understand how we are loved. How do we experience that love? How do we create that bond, that attachment with our parents, with our siblings, and how do we form love in relationships based on the conflicts and the fights that we have. The word fight is very commonly used in relationships, but you'll hear me say conflict, disconnection a lot throughout the podcast because I like to use those words. Those are more emotionally, they're the emotional language that we use as opposed to fight. But I love the name of this podcast because it is so true. We feel love and connection in a conflict, or we feel disconnection and distant in a conflict. And I came from a family where I didn't understand and didn't know how to resolve conflicts, how to talk about my emotions, how to talk about my feelings. And I learned this long after, well, when I was 35, I started to learn it. And so I really have been able to understand the power of our emotions, understand the importance of a secure attachment and a securely attached relationship with your kids and also with your parents. And I'm here now to share all the things that I've learned, but more importantly, share all the things that I've taught my kids that has truly impacted them in a very positive way. And to see the transformation from what I was doing as a parent before I learned the emotional process and what I'm doing now. And I'm excited to have you here, Mom, because, well, you taught me, first of all. And Dr. Lola Gershfeld is the creator developer of a process called EMC process. And I've been lucky enough to be on the receiving end of this process. At first, I wasn't so excited, but now I'm really excited. And even moments, there are times that I'm not so excited. And I just get pulled back into creating these bonding moments. And then I've taken the EMC process and I've transformed it into using it for kids in a kids reconnection process. So we're here to share what that is all about and also how it has impacted us. And we're also going to take you step by step through how to use the process and how to create a really close emotional bond with your children and also for the children. This is what I want to focus on is the children being able to express themselves and for them to have a voice. So, welcome, welcome, welcome to Love at First Fight. Get excited Get really excited because, well, first of all, my mom and I can talk for hours and hours and hours on end about this stuff, but now we're here to share it all with you. So, the very first thing that we want to talk about today is the importance of our emotions. Oh, but and my mom is like the most intelligent scientific like an expansive science knowledge on how the emotions affect us and our brain and how we can create this thriving environment. But I first want to say, before I learned this, I was so avoidant of conflicts. I didn't want to talk about conflicts. I didn't want to, I didn't even know what a fight was. I didn't know how to fight. I didn't know what that looked like. I thought it was all conflict was bad, scary, steer clear. Don't like confrontation. But now I look at conflict as an opportunity for connection. And that is one thing I say to my kids a lot. Conflicts are an opportunity to grow closer with someone, or they can also be an opportunity to get clear on whether maybe the relationship, and this is not parent-child or child-parent relationship or sibling bonds, but relationship outside of family is something that is worth working on and connecting with. So, in a family dynamic, in a family bond where a child, it's a child parent or a sibling or cousins or aunts, there is that, like what you like to call it, what is it called, Mom? It's like we have it in our blood,
Oh, it's
right?
longing for that connection, right? It's wired
We
that that longing for connection. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Like we have it in our blood to be connected to our family.
Mhm.
And I think that's important to start off with is that you hear this a lot like, oh, I cut those people off. I don't care if they're family. My friends are closer to me than my family. And the truth is, underneath that, we have this desire and this longing to be connected to our family, to our parents, to our siblings, to our children. So
Well,
let's
first of all, I
talk.
want to
Yes.
say to you, Polina, I love the name of uh, Love at First Fight. Absolutely, because that is what we lose as children when we don't get the right response in that fight. I mean, I see parenting. I remember doing disciplining you as my child, and how ineffective those strategies were. It was terrible. It created more disconnection. It created an unsafe environment for you and for our son, and it put us in that negative loop that we were stuck in, with shaming or having timeout. I mean, think about what parents do um, as a result of not knowing the right way to create that connection. Is we discipline them with timeout. And what does that timeout means? You go into the room and be by yourself.
So I want to just take it back really quick to what you first said, which is the name of the podcast, Love at First Fight, is because we have this first experience in our fight, in our relationship, and we don't know what we're doing that are impacting the kids in that
Exactly. We
experience,
don't
that
know.
moment.
Yeah.
So, um, I I love I love that it can be fighting has such a negative connotation to it, and it's like I feel it's like a very heavy word. But in this perspective, it really is an opportunity to learn how to fight because it's still going to happen. It's still going to happen in all your relationships, but in a way where you can express yourself using the emotional process and the emotional language and reconnect to heal those injuries. And you guys, this relationship here with my mom is a long time coming. We had a very difficult, very difficult and complicated
Yeah, complicated.
negative
Different,
cycle.
right? Yeah, negative cycle.
Very, very
Absolutely.
big,
Oh my gosh,
complicated
the
negative
cycle took
cycle.
over our relationship. The cycle would take
Yes.
over our relationship. And thank goodness we're getting rid of that cycle.
And there was a very long, years and years, a long gap where my mom and I did not have connection. We did not have the ability to communicate our needs, our feelings, to feel comfortable with each other and safe with each other in order to do so. And we have come a long way, just in the last several years that we've been working on our relationship. And look at where it has brought us to this moment right here. I feel like
Absolutely.
people dream of this opportunity where they could feel so emotionally connected with their parents and they can feel approval and acceptance and they don't feel ashamed and they can feel and that's why I want to be the voice of the children because in our relationship, Mom, I'm the child,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
in our experience transforming and working into the relationship that we have now, every moment that we've had these conversations using the emotional process in order to create that bonding moment with each other and heal those injuries from the past, I have been the child. And I can turn around and yes, I can be the parent to my children that I wanted in my childhood, but I get to also share this is what it feels like to be able to speak as a child, to be able to be heard, validated, understood. And the other thing too is I have so many followers on Instagram, my personal page, Life with Five Kids. And it is an entertainment channel, but I do get so many messages from followers they're young teens, they're kids, and they're like, I wish I had a mom like you. I wish I had the ability to express myself. I wish I felt heard. I wish my voice was heard in my family. Can you adopt me? That's probably the most common question I get. And you know what? That's what I'm doing here. This is my inspiration and vision and dream is to really impact the lives of children who can learn how to use this emotional process and this emotional language to communicate their feelings and their needs and to create that safe environment and inspire their parents, inspire their sibling, inspire their friends, inspire the community so that we can have these moments where we feel much more emotionally connected and we can thrive. That's the goal. That is the goal. And I think that is my favorite part in seeing this entire process work with my kids is how much they are thriving. Is they are still going into environments that maybe are not as emotionally safe for them or having experiences where they are fighting or in conflicts, but they are able to come out. They are able to express themselves, to understand what's happening with themselves, and to heal from those injuries, and then get what they need amongst their siblings and with me and with you, which I
Yes,
love
exactly.
too. I love
But
that.
Pauline, you mentioned something really important. You said when we come to the world, in this world, we are longing for that connection. And then it's true. I mean, think about all the babies. I remember there was a research that was done that looked at all the babies during World War II. Why in this orphanage, people who were held, the babies that were held, they survived where those babies who were not held there died. So,
Yeah.
in a way, attachment plays a huge significant role in happiness and instability and emotional balance for the kids. So they, like you said, they are thriving because of that secure attachment with you and with each other.
I love it. So I would like to just talk about the power of emotions on a science perspective, because yes, I see that so many now, more than ever, so many more parents and, just people in general are becoming progressive or open to understanding their emotions. Sometimes they call it like woke. Have you heard that term before?
Yes, yes, I have.
Or they're like, oh, all of a sudden they're aware of what's happening within them, inside them, how they're being expressed. So let's talk a little bit about the science, and this is where you are an expert in this field. Talk to us about like the science of emotions, like how's it possible that we're here on this earth and it's 2025 and now finally, why did it take so long?
Exactly. Why did it take
Finally.
so long? Right, because our society has not allowed us to express emotions. And I think for many, many years, emotions were not known how to work with them because they're invisible and they're very fast, right? And they're supposed to be fast because they save our life.
Yeah.
But in the last, I think, 25, 30 years, there has been hundreds and hundreds of studies on the power of emotions. I mean, emotions comes from a Latin word, immovere, means to move. And it moves
Mm.
us into action of what we need because emotions tell us what we need and
Okay,
they
so wait.
activate.
Hold on. I want to just savor this moment right here because I always learn something new when I'm talking to you about this stuff. I feel like I have probably 50% of a psych degree without actually going to psychology school, just talking with you about this topic. So the word emotion comes from, say that again,
Latin word immovere,
immovere. I
which
love
means to move, which means to move.
Yes, which means to move. Did you wait? Okay, hold on. I just put these two things together. So, the secret to life, this is what I learned in one of my classes for the naturopathic medicine program for the PhD, is movement. In order for our cells to work in our body and in our brain, there is a gear inside the cell that has to be moving, but that gear moves based on specific triggers. So when we have the triggers, it moves the gears. When the gears move, the cells work. So this is like amazing. Okay, all right. We just discovered something amazing. Where's our like Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Peace Prize? Because seriously, in order, the secret to life is movement because our health is our greatest wealth, mentally and physically. And here we have it. The word emotion comes from,
The Latin word immovere,
which means to
to
move.
move. Mhm.
I
Yes.
just got
Yes, yes. And it communicates to us. It communicates when we feel safe and when we feel unsafe. So it communicates when there's a change in our environment, whether it is in the relationship, whether it is in our conversations, whether it is in the environment, what's happening for us. So whenever we have this change, whether it is a disconnection or connection, we create emotion, and we have these hormones that secretes as a result of it. For example, when you tell me how much you love me, how much you care about me, you are that I'm important to you, my body produces oxytocin, which is very, very healthy and good for our system.
the
When
feel-good hormone.
yeah, feel good hormone. And now the study shows actually it's really any attachment relationship, whether it is parents and child or couples or even siblings or even people who work together, they all produce oxytocin when we show how much that sense of care, affection, love, and support with each other. And so this is critically important because if we are in a stressful situation, the fastest way for us to calm ourselves down is to reach for each other. And when we reach for each other, when children learn how to reach for each other and for their parents in a way that communicates that clear message, then they can regain their balance and get that oxytocin that they need.
But I feel this is the disconnection though here that happens. It's almost like you're going down a highway. And when we don't get that as a child, we don't get that reassurance, that secure attachment bond, the love and affection, we start to the all of those parts in our brain that senses danger start to get triggered, and we go down a highway that creates an insecurely attached relationship. And then what happens, and this is what I see a lot of with kids, and I see a lot of in relationships in general, is we experience that not knowing that is what's happening with us. And then the response to relationships in our life as we get older become very difficult. We struggle with bonding with people. We don't know what's happening with us. And then people feel like they're missing something. They feel missing, like they're missing something. So they're looking for other things in order to replace that space that they're missing. And what is actually happening is that they don't have those tools to create that emotionally bonding experience in that securely attached relationship. And so that is what is happening is they're feeling that missing. So they have these, we start off as little babies needing that affection, just like you were talking about that study that went on, and babies that were held and loved and cuddled, they survived. They went down the road where they got that affection and they got that love and reassurance and that care. And so there was that upbringing of them feeling that secure attachment. And then there were babies that were not cared for and not loved in that way, and they did not survive. They did not survive.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And emotion, right? Because we are not taught to slow down, to understand what's happening for us. Like you said, we start to going a different way. We go into that highway of negative interactions where we start to protect ourselves by watching and by having our natural, I would say, genetic responses from our parents, whether we start aggressively attack or blame, judge, criticize, or we withdraw and shut down. I mean, I remember being in the airport, and I saw this lady with a baby. Okay, and
hmm
the baby is crying, and the mother is on the phone, and
hmm
she's not looking at the baby, and the baby's crying, and she just says, "What? What?"
hmm
Right? And the baby's crying, and
hmm
the mother is just on the phone, continues to be on the phone, not paying attention to the baby. And then she keeps going, looking on the phone, and just gives the bottle to the baby. And the baby throws the bottle off
hmm
away and keeps crying. And the mother now is a very agitated, and she's like, "What? What? Why are you crying?" Right? So here's
Yeah.
the response. The baby is already learning how to respond, and what the baby does, the baby then shuts down. The baby stops responding, and then you see that the baby is just staring. The
Yeah.
baby is staring in some space. And what is the
hmm
baby is doing? The baby is shutting down her emotions in that.
Yeah.
So
hmm
she's learning
At the first
at
fight,
the first,
at
at
the
the very
first conflict.
conflict,
At the first
exactly.
fight that is being experienced between this mother and child, she is learning how to
What's
cope.
Yeah, how to cope because she doesn't know any other way.
Right. And the mother is
Now,
not responding
mother's not
to
responding.
her
Now,
emotional needs.
another situation where I'm at the airport again, right?
Wait,
And
before you go into that next situation, I also want to point out that it's very easy for us to listen to a story like this and say, what a terrible mother and how bad she is. Because we are so quick to judge and criticize out of our own triggers. But I want to just clarify when we share this story, it's not that we feel the mother's a bad person for not giving the attention to the baby. But this is a clear example of how the mother is not also has not gotten her emotional needs met. And
exactly,
because she is unable to get her emotional needs met, she is unable to respond to the child's emotional needs.
exactly.
And this is, I feel, is so important to point out. And you will hear us talking about this in a lot of different scenarios and situations, especially with my kids, because we are quick to say like what a terrible mother and how horrible she was on her phone and it's the phone and parents are just on their screens or kids are on their screens. Let me remind you that this is not the case. The case is that she herself is unable to be emotionally present and responsive to the child. Therefore, the child is learning that she is not getting her needs met.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. This is such a well statement because not the parent's fault that she's responding like this. It's because she has never been taught and
Yeah,
and also has never been demonstrated the impact it has on the child
right. And she has no
and on
idea.
the relationship that she's having
Yeah.
with the child. So
And
that
I went through the same thing. I had children and thinking in my head, oh, I'm not going to parent the way my parents parented me because there is no way I want to do that. But those patterns that you learn in your childhood, in those fights, those conflicts that you experience with your family, they show up regardless of your desire to want to parent differently, they still show up in the conflicts that you experience with your children. That's where the
I
awareness and
love
the
it. Wait,
connectivity
Polina, I
have
love
to.
what you're saying because why do they show up? Because these cycles continue to occur. The cycles that you were stuck with your parents, they
Yes.
will transfer to your relationship with your children and with
And with
your
your
partners.
spouse,
Yeah,
yes, and with your workplace, and with your friends, all of these patterns. So if we go back to the example at the airport, and we look at that conflict as a pattern that's being created for this little child. What's happening is, and this is important also because we want to bring awareness to the cycles that occur in your relationship with your children. And for those kids that are watching these videos, we want to make sure that you understand the patterns that are created when you have a conflict with your parents. The baby wanted the mom to respond to her emotional needs. And the way that she reached for that desire, for that emotional need to be viewed and accepted and responded to was she was crying, right?
yeah,
And the
exactly.
crying occurred, and instead of the mom responding to the crying, she was on her phone, so she distracted herself. She got busy. She's probably numbing out. And you're not familiar with these terms, just keep in mind as we continue with the podcast, you will become much more familiar with these. We like to call it the emotional language and these words. And and then you can see, even just, I wasn't even there and I couldn't see the difference in the emotions that went on with her. But you can see that the baby went from crying to getting frustrated because the mom gave her the bottle and the baby threw the bottle, right? So,
Yeah,
and they were probably experiencing the same emotion because the mom said, "What?" As if
right.
she was
Exactly.
frustrated with the baby, and the baby's like, "What? Back? Because I'm gonna throw the bottle." And this is right here. And then they shut down. She shuts down. The baby shuts down.
Yeah,
And now staring, numbs out, right? Is
exactly.
no understands. At that moment, the baby doesn't understand, but subconscious
Mimics.
mimics the mom.
Yeah,
And then subconsciously is like, this is how my needs are getting met, which is not getting met.
not getting
Right?
that. I'm not important. I'm
I'm
not
not
loved.
important. I'm not cared for. I'm not loved. Now, does the baby know those things at that moment? No.
No. Hmm.
But the baby is learning these coping mechanisms and these cycles. And then what happens is as the child grows and continues to learn these same mechanisms and coping techniques,
Strategy, yeah, techniques.
that will show up in relationships. That will show up
Absolutely.
in that child's parenting. And what happens? So, why maybe we look at this cycle and we're like, oh no, that's normal. Well, guess what? What happens when this becomes the normal? We have not emotionally connected relationships. We're not thriving. We have a lot of anxiety. Our cortisol levels increase. We have stress. We don't feel secure. We're always on alert. We have health issues because we have so much cortisol in our system. We have stomach problems because we can't digest food because we have so much shame. Those emotions are connected and tied to our physical body. So then, because of the negative cycle that's occurring in that child is now going to see the effects of this cycle for years and years and years in all the relationships. And it could show up in many different ways too. It could show up in eating disorders. It could show up in
Lack of motivation, poor grades, isolation, taking drugs,
addictive
alcohol, addictive
behaviors.
behavior.
Yes, using distractions that are not having healthy habits, not depression. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Hmm.
So this is where it starts.
This is
Love
where it
at
starts.
first fight. Woo! So thank you very, very much for listening today. We are going to take you on a journey, the journey that I have been experiencing the last 6 years, learning about the EMC process and how I've integrated it into my life, into the life of my children, into my dating life. Yes, I'm a single mom. I was married for 15 years and got divorced and then learned about this process. And and we're going to talk about all things that have to do with how emotions impact our life. But I love children. I've always loved children. I was like the neighborhood babysitter. Do you remember that?
Absolutely, yes. You always love children. That's so true.
And I have such a big heart for them. And in my experience and watching my own five children, I really, really feel I have a lot of empathy and understanding for where kids are coming from and their perspective and their voice. And that's really my goal here, to be the voice of the children so that children can learn how to communicate using the process of the EMC process and the process of our emotions to really feel heard, valued, understood, validated, and most importantly, seen. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mom.
you. Thank you,
Dr.
Polina.
Lola
This was
Gershfeld is
great.
here on stage.
Woo!
Thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time for episode 2. Bye.
Bye.